we think that taking pictures of ourselves every day isn't really doing anything. Like it's just not a big deal, you know? But if we think about the formative nature of liturgies, right? The smallest things, like why do you have to kneel? Why do you have to raise your hands when you sing? Thinking about kind of traditional Sunday worship types of liturgy. It's like, well, in the end of the day, when you keep doing it, it actually does shape you. It shapes your imagination of who God is. It shapes your imagination of who you are, right? When you're in that worship stance. We don't see it at the moment, right? But it does, right? Because our bodies do shape. We are trained, like athletes and musicians and artists. We are trained in that. And so I think to say that we're not formed is naive. As to the contestation of or protestation of like, well, this is what I have to do. This is the way the world is. I think, unfortunately, at least for a person of faith, it seems like a pretty lame excuse, to be frank. Just because
and that's how we lost half our audience.
I'm sorry.
No,
but it just
I'm just kidding. I'm messing around.
It just feels like, I mean, the movement that Jesus started, like it was against the world, like it was countercultural. I mean, the Beatitudes, like that's what you'd say to the Beatitudes, like, this is insane. Like, who does this? Right? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, that's ridiculous. Right. And so to me, that's the sticking point. It's sort of like, if you're a person of faith, you're going to need to decide, like, what is this about? Like, are we just playing church? Are we just playing like, oh, I'm nice, moral, decent person, like I'm nice to people, I give to charity, I give to good causes? Or are we really committed to following the Jesus that is in the gospel, who is incredibly countercultural in so many ways beyond what so many of us talk about? I guess the last thing I would say is, let's look at the fruit of the lives that we're living. I think there is just so much fatigue that people are experiencing, and so much stress in the keeping up, that to me, it's just like, I don't think we were meant to live this way, and everyone sees it, right? Silicon Valley people see it. Young people are talking about it. Everyone's freaking out. And
you're right.
So the fruit of it is not good. And the truth of the matter is, and I say this in the book, we've been talking about social media. We've been talking about even our own Gen X-y experience of, the transition that we've experienced, we've witnessed in our lives. It's like what I write about, these immediate sorts of what technology looks like now is nothing like what it's going to look like in 50 years. Like what we're talking about now is peanuts compared to who knows what it's going to be. Well, right. And so that's why to me, it's like, yes, we need to figure out how to live with the digital situation that we have right now. But in the end of the day, you need to know what kind of life and what kind of person you actually want to have and live into, because the tech is always going to be changing, right? But you need to have a clearer vision, right? Of like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? And what do I really, when I look back at the end of my days, do I really want to have just thought like, gosh, I spent all that time trying to keep my inbox at 0, right? It's just like, how sad is that, right? It's just, I think none of us would want that. Like, we want to look back, we all know what we want to see, right? We want to see people that love us, that we belong to, right? We want to see, right, certain things that are not about so much of what this digital story trains us into. And so you know, we got to get on it then and be like, well, how do I start to move towards that?